If you ever hear your name called out across that Utah pasture, don't answer. Not because it's a prank, because the thing calling you already knows what you sound like when you're afraid. There's a 200-acre patch of land in northeastern Utah where reality behaves like it's been tampered with. The air feels wrong, heavy, damp, like a storm that never arrives. Sounds don't travel normally. At night, even crickets seem to hesitate, as if something is listening for them to make the first mistake. For decades, the local Ute people avoided it. Some wouldn't even point at it. They had a name for that stretch of dirt, the Skinwalker's Path, a place where spirits didn't just haunt. They hunted. They took shapes. They wore faces. And if you crossed into that valley without respect, you didn't just risk dying. You risked being followed. Modern people love to laugh at stories like that. We label them myths, file them away, and keep driving. But the laughter gets thin when the United States government starts treating the legend like an active crime scene, thin enough to spend real money. Not a grant, not a few $1,000s, tens of millions. Because eventually, the ranch became more than a campfire story. It became a question with teeth. The modern nightmare begins in 1994, when the Sherman family bought the property to raise prize cattle. They weren't looking for a ghost town. They wanted a business, a quiet life, the kind where the loudest problem is winter. On their first day, they saw a wolf in the pasture, not a half-starved animal slipping through the brush. This one was huge, wrongly huge. It moved with a calm that didn't match an animal that should fear humans and fences. It walked straight toward the corral like it had been there before, like it knew where food lived. Then it attacked. It lunged at a calf and bit down through the metal bars, crushing and tearing as if steel was soft. The calf screamed. The sound carried across the land. And then, it felt like the whole valley held its breath. Terry Sherman ran for his high-powered rifle. He fired 3 times at point-blank range. He saw the shots land. He saw the body react, but there was no blood. The wolf didn't drop. It didn't yelp. It didn't even stumble. It released the calf, turned its head slowly, and looked at Terry with eyes that felt human, cold, measuring. Then it walked into the dark and vanished. Not behind a hill, not into trees. It disappeared like smoke deciding it didn't need to be seen anymore. That was the opening act. In the weeks that followed, cattle began to vanish. Not 1 or 2. Valuable animals, heavy bulls, near a ton, gone without tracks, without broken fences, without logic. Sometimes they were found in impossible places, inside locked trailers, packed in like freight, as if something had grabbed a living animal and placed it somewhere it could not physically fit, then shut the door. Other times, the ranch found what was left. Mutilations so clean they looked surgical, organs removed with unnatural precision, no blood pooling in the dirt, no drag marks, just meat, open to night air, like the ranch itself had been used as a table. Then the lights started, blue orbs drifting through the darkness, slipping past windows, hanging in hallways like curious eyes. The family's dogs, trained protective animals, would chase the lights and come back screaming. Some didn't come back at all. Others were found burned, as if heat had touched them without flame. And under the ranch, under the soil, under the rock, there were voices. Not a neighbor, not a radio. Sounds like words, but not in English, not in any language the Shermans recognized. Sometimes it was whispering. Sometimes it was louder, like a crowd trapped underground, like something was down there. The situation became so extreme, it drew attention far above the county line, far above Utah. Reports reached the kind of people who don't like attention and don't show up unless they smell a pattern. Eventually, the ranch ended up in the hands of Robert Bigelow, a billionaire with aerospace money and a hunger for the unexplained. He bought the property and brought in a private scientific team, the NIDS, the National Institute for Discovery Science. They didn't arrive like tourists. They arrived like a security operation. Cameras, motion sensors, radiation monitors, night vision gear, armed guards, logs, reports, chain of custody. The kind of setup you build when you believe the place is not only dangerous, but intelligent enough to react to observation. And that's where the story gets uglier, because the official story is always clean. The official story always says the evidence is inconclusive, anecdotal, unverified. But leaked references connected to a Pentagon-linked effort, Abu Saab, talk about things that don't belong in any normal report. They describe portals opening above the property, dark openings in the sky, like holes punched through the day, shapes moving through them, creatures crawling out, not like animals, but like something trying to remember how gravity works. And then there's the detail that makes every tough guy go quiet. The hitchhiker effect. Investigators and military intelligence personnel who visited the ranch began reporting that the phenomenon didn't stay there. When they went back to Washington, to Virginia, to safe suburbs with manicured lawns and locked doors, it followed. Their wives saw shadows crossing rooms. Their kids reported lights hovering at the foot of the bed. Orbs appeared in houses that had never seen anything strange before. The same cold pressure in the air, the same feeling of being watched from the corner of the ceiling, as if the ranch wasn't just a location, as if it was an infection, a mind that learned your face and then went home with you. Today, that land is among the most monitored private properties in America. Fences reinforced, cameras everywhere, people who visit sign papers, people who talk too loudly get reminded, quickly, that someone is listening. But the main question still sits under the dirt, like a bone you can't bury deep enough. What is beneath that soil? Some say it's an ancient non-human base, something old, buried, and still powered. Others claim it's a man-made experiment, dimensional tests that ripped a seam and never stitched it shut. The Ute explanation is simpler. That's what makes it dangerous. They say it's a door that was never meant to be opened. And now something on the other side has realized it isn't locked anymore. So if you ever drive those Utah roads and you see the reinforced fences cutting through the scrubland, keep going. Don't pull over. Don't take photos. And whatever you do, don't stare into the dark pasture like you're daring it to blink. Because on Skinwalker Ranch, the darkness doesn't just stare back. Sometimes it follows you home.